we already know that we spend more on our military than the next 13 countries combined, right? That was last year's budget. This year, and with no major enemy, by the way, you know, Russia spends $65 billion on their military.
Which is nothing.
By the way, they weren't our enemy up until the 2016 election. Before that, they're hanging out at Kennebunkport. Putin's going fishing with the Bushes, right?
Until it was useful.
They're giving a speech. Yeah. Bill Clinton's giving $500,000 to give a speech. Yeah. He's giving the plutonium to. So this is all bullshit over about, and we know that, right?
Yeah.
But that's not going to get talked about. But I just want to talk about so we don't really have any enemies that can threaten us militarily in that way, and the Democrats just signed off. Trump proposed $55 billion extra. The Democrats signed off on $100 billion extra on the defense Pentagon budget from last year.
Which, if you include the black budget, is about $1 trillion.
Yes. So nobody said, how are you going to pay for that?
Got no steel industry left, can't get health care to our old people, can't educate our young people, but we can bomb the shit out of your country, all right? Huh? We can bomb the shit out of your country, all right? Especially if your country is full of brown people. Oh, we like that, don't we? That's our hobby. That's our new job in the world, bombing brown people. Iraq, Panama, Grenada, Libya, you got some brown people in your country. Tell them to watch the fuck out.
So in total, we've spent $2 trillion and counting in Afghanistan. The war in Iraq, $7 trillion spent over there. By the way, our infrastructure gets a grade of D+ from the Society of Civil Engineers. Half the country makes $30,000 a year or less. It's not like we need those resources at home desperately. Oh, and by the way, at the same time that we get this announcement that we're sending 3,000 more soldiers to Afghanistan, look at this. This is from last night. Breaking. Senate overwhelmingly backs sweeping policy bill to pump $700 billion into the military.
It's all kicking off, isn't it, Tim? All these cartoon characters threatening to blow up the world. Donald Trump versus Kim, whichever one it is. They're all the bloody same. No. Tim, it's not racist. That's not what I meant. The current president is technically Kim Il-sung, even though he died in 1994, and the government's general secretary is Kim Il-sung's son, Kim Jong-il, who died in 2011. But don't worry, he's still the general secretary, even though he's dead. And the supreme leader is Kim Jong-un, son of Kim Jong-il and grandson of Kim Il-sung. So excuse me if I get my Kims mixed up. Yeah, my point is, we see Trump and Kim as the same characters, children's characters. You know, Orange Bob Shitpants versus an evil piece of Lego. Kim Jong-un, oh yeah, the one with the perfectly spherical head and the cheeky grin, yeah? Oh, his dad was in Team America, wasn't he? Yeah, looks like an emoji, but one you'd send your ex-girlfriend if you were about to have her executed. A bit like Kim Jong-un actually did, allegedly. There is nothing funny about North Korea. You know, actually there is. North Koreans, get this, North Koreans are told Kim Jong-il invented the hamburger, that he controlled the weather, and that he never went to the toilet. Never took a shit. Why would you even make that up? Also, he was apparently an international fashion icon. Yeah, the guy in the grey zip-up tunic and the oversized glasses. Apparently, it's super fashionable these days to dress like a recently divorced lesbian on a budget.
What do you think about this? Is there a large anti-war left? Like, where is it?
There is not a large anti-war left. There is an anti-war left, and what the Democrats decided to do was turn off the lights on them at the DNC convention. That's what happened, and they used sound cannons. So when
like white noise to cover up the booing.
So when Leon Panetta, who used to be the Secretary of Defense and famously said, I play the clip on my show all the time, he was asked by Scott Pelley, how many shooting wars is the United States actively engaged in right now? And his answer was disgusting because he laughed. He went, ha ha, well, I'd have to sit and think about that. Ha ha ha. He'd have to sit and think about how many shooting wars we're in. You know how many military bases the United States has all over the world? No one knows because lots of them are secret. But there's estimated over 1,000 bases around the world. There's not 1,000 countries.
The Secretary of Defense made a big announcement yesterday. Take a look. Mattis, U.S. to send 3,000 more troops to Afghanistan. So that'll bring the total to over 14,000 troops we now have in Afghanistan. When you look at all of our interventions, we have Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. Some of the places where we're doing interventions are just drone strikes. Other ones are traditional airstrikes with fighter jets. Other ones are full-out ground invasions. We, of course, have 900 military bases around the world at a cost of $100 billion a year to maintain.
Well, a lot of things have happened since the last time I saw you. Just want to talk a little bit about that war in the Persian Gulf. Big doings in the Persian Gulf. You know my favorite part of that war? It's the first war we ever had that was on every channel plus cable. And the war got good ratings too, didn't it? Got good ratings. Well, we like war. We like war. We're a war-like people. We like war because we're good at it. And you know why we're good at it? Because we get a lot of practice. This country's only 200 years old, and already we've had 10 major wars. We average a major war in this country every 20 years, so we're good at it. And it's a good thing we are. We're not very good at anything else anymore.
We do have to take a moment of silence and bid a fond farewell to George W. Bush. Yes, it's the end of the reign of George II. The reign of error is over. America is officially out of rehab. Welcome.
So,
The one guy
Yeah.
who stood up to the New York Times to tell the truth about the Iraq War, they fired. You tell me, again, where's Phil Donahue on MSNBC? They got rid of the one guy telling the truth about the Iraq War. You know, you'd think you'd want him back. No, no, no. Let's keep him away. Let's keep all the people who were wrong about the Iraq War, right? Because when you're wrong in the defense of the establishment, especially the military-industrial complex in Wall Street, you will never be punished. You will, in fact, be rewarded.
So what do you do? We all know in politics, if in doubt, start a fucking war. Well, there's a lot of doubt in Washington right now, so if you need people on side, who are you going to start a war with? A fucking lunatic. That's who. It might be unconsidered and very dangerous, but there's a warped logic to it. You know, I can't see anyone launching a nuke anytime soon, but right now I wouldn't want to bet my dog on it, you know? If Trump is seriously considering taking him on, he'd better know what he's doing. Which of course is where this whole thing falls down, because it's, well, you've got on one side, you have a sociopathic, inexperienced Orwellian nightmare of demagoguery with his hand on a red button, and on the other you've got Kim Jong-un.
But I do think he could do stand-up comedy because he has 8 years of amazing material. He has stuff, and here's some of W's greatest hits. The question that's never asked, is our children learning? I just found out that a lot of our imports come from other countries. America, a country where you can put food on your family. Our enemies are looking for terrible ways to destroy this country, and so are we.
Now you might be noticing I don't feel about that war the way we were told we were supposed to feel about that war, the way we were ordered and instructed by the United States government to feel about that war. See, my mind doesn't work that way. I got this real moron thing I do. It's called thinking. And I'm not a really good American because I like to form my own opinions. I don't just roll over when I'm told to. Sad to say, most Americans just roll over on command. Not me. Not me. I have certain rules I live by. My first rule, I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing. Zero.
But it certainly is no coincidence that the people telling the truth about things, they don't want to fund, especially the truth about war. You're not ever, and this is not hyperbole, but you are never going to get the truth about the war on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, The Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and especially The Washington Post. Remember, fake news was WMDs. Right. Fake news was we should go to war with Iraq, that Saddam Hussein is threatening us. This is all the stuff that the Washington Post printed, the heads of their editorial board. This wasn't some blogger. This was their editorial board saying that if you think that there isn't weapons of mass destruction and Saddam Hussein isn't a threat to us, that you're crazy. That was the Washington Post. You're never going to hear the truth. By the way, there was 1 million people in the streets who knew that was a lie. I knew it was a lie. I was a nightclub comedian and I knew it was a lie. You knew it was a lie. My mom knew it was a lie. But you're telling me everybody at MSNBC, CNN, and New York Times didn't know it was a lie?
If corporate media was not basically an arm of the government, they would have asked all these questions on day one. They would say, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? They would have asked these questions a year into the war, 2 years into the war. This fucking thing started in 2001 and it's 2017. And you still don't get the most basic questions. There's going to be more coverage of Donald Trump's shitty joke tweet where it's a gif where he's hitting a golf ball at Hillary Clinton. There's more coverage of that than there is at the fact that we just prolonged an endless war again and we're wasting trillions of dollars and lives in the process.
It's like, who has $750 billion they can spare? And I'm going, the only people in the world, the Saudis. Can you spare I will give you $750 billion. All I want is a picture of Angelina Jolie and Louis Walsh. I changed that reference for England. Thank God that worked. Thank you.
And I don't take very seriously the media or the press in this country, who in the case of the Persian Gulf War were nothing more than unpaid employees of the Department of Defense, and who most of the time function as kind of an unofficial public relations agency for the United States government. So I don't listen to them. I don't really believe in my country. And I gotta tell you folks, I don't get all choked up about yellow ribbons and American flags. I consider them to be symbols, and I leave symbols to the symbol-minded. To me, war is nothing but a whole lot of prick waving, okay? War is just a lot of men standing around in a field waving their pricks at one another. Simple thing, that's all it is.
Problem with the Democratic Party, there's no Breitbart. The problem in the Democratic Party, they haven't had a civil war. And you know why? The financial crisis shows you that. Obama, and there were guys in that administration that understood that they had to go and hold these people on Wall Street accountable. And they blinked. The Huffington Posters and the Rachel Maddows, they're just cheerleaders. They're just cheerleaders for the donor class of the Democratic Party. And until they vet that, until they have their civil war, they'll never be competitive.
That's a great point. Wow. I totally agree. Fuck. Is that guy maybe available to run a left-wing media organization of some sort? Because he's making some great points. Everything he just said, and you will not, by the way, what he just said, you will not hear on any corporate media, any mainstream media. No, that is, what he just said is not allowed.
You think Bill Clinton was sitting at home the whole time going, where was she when I was in office? Damn. What's up? And Bill has some bad luck. He found the only Jewish girl who couldn't get a stain out. That is so sad.
Even the name Bush is related to the genitals without being the genitals. A bush is a sort of passive secondary sex characteristic. Now, if this man's name had been George Boner, well, he might have felt a little better about himself and we wouldn't have had any trouble over there in the first place. This whole country has a manhood problem. Big manhood problem in the USA. You can tell from the language we use. Language always gives you away. What did we do wrong in Vietnam? We pulled out.
Now, speaking of anti-war, something else that is never discussed about Steve Bannon, about the fact that he was probably fired, resigned, whatever, but fired from the White House, pushed out from the White House. Something they cannot talk about. The real reason, and Steve Bannon doesn't want to talk about it either, but the real reason Bannon is no longer at the White House is because he was the only one there that was against war, against intervention, against our military actions around the world. Trump said he was in the campaign, but he didn't fucking mean any of that. So Bannon was the only one remaining in the White House. that butted heads with all these generals that Trump has now surrounded himself with. McMaster, General Kelly, General Mad Dog Mattis. General Kelly is now Trump's chief of staff. All of those guys hated that Bannon was anti-war and anti-intervention. And so Bannon was left butting heads with these guys.
So that is a justification for endless war. That's all that is. And it just so happens that, hey, when you look in Iraq, tremendous amount of oil wealth there, and the oil production increased after we invaded. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe in Afghanistan, the minerals have something to do with it. Opium has something to do with it. Now, you bring that part up, all of a sudden people say, oh, that's Alex Jonesy. But what the fuck else can describe what we're doing when the original justifications have been utterly destroyed because they've been achieved, but we're still there? So what the fuck else can explain it? Well, you gotta get the radical Islamic terrorists. Saudi Arabia is the powerhouse and the factory of radical Islamic terrorists. And they're one of our best friends. So it's obviously not that either.
That's why George Bush had to say in the Persian Gulf, this will not be another Vietnam. He actually used these words, this time we're going all the way. Imagine an American president using the sexual slang of a 13-year-old to describe his foreign policy.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War assembled in the nation's capital for a mass protest. For the most part orderly, minor scuffles did occur between the demonstrators and hecklers. A 3-hour parade takes the demonstrators across the Potomac on their way to the Pentagon. The crowd, estimated at about 50,000 persons, was a loose confederation of some 150 groups and included adults, students, even children. It is at the Pentagon where the first test of strength comes. Military police contain the crowd, but clashes soon break out. Federal marshals arrest several who attempt to break through the protective line. Reinforcing the marshals, a second wave of MPs with fixed bayonets in scabbards move into position. Some 400 demonstrators are arrested, 2 soldiers are injured, and tear gas is used. 6 break into a Pentagon side door, but are quickly apprehended in the day-long disturbance.
Maybe there's one person, and I want to get a guy out there running, you know, when Sarah and people talk, who can we get that would run and make the whole world go, wow? And that guy would be Jack Nicholson. Yeah, baby. He has got cooler movies than Arnold. You can't handle the truth. You'll never have a sex scandal with Jack. He's done everybody. I had Angelina Jolie, and afterwards she adopted me. And you'll never have a drug scandal. Jack has done every drug known to mankind. He's the only guy in the world that Keith Richards will go, I have to go home now, Jack.
And remember, Donald Trump was the guy who said repeatedly, we went over one time every comment he made on Afghanistan. And for the longest time, he was vehemently against it. He was as against it as I'm against staying in Afghanistan. He called it stupid. I mean, we went through the list. Well, now all of a sudden, you know, the deep state is whispering in his ear, the generals, Mr. President, we have to stay there. By the way, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you go back through American history, the generals always have the same answer, more war. What do you think happened in Vietnam? They kept telling Lyndon Johnson, oh, we just need more troops, that's all we need, and then everything will be good. But what's the end goal? What's victory? Well, I don't know, we just need more troops. They just kept saying more troops, more troops, more troops. It's the same fucking thing now. Whether it's the neocons in the deep state, it's the CIA, it's the generals. So more troops, more troops. What the fuck is 3,000 more troops going to accomplish when you won't even tell us what the definition of victory is?
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough, Jimmy. I wish we could do this more often. If we weren't on separate coasts, we would. But
great time, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.